thank you so much for joining us tonight for the 5th Annual Infertility Awareness Shabbat. As people continue to join, we are going to begin. Though this was not our original plan, we are so grateful to have the opportunity to join together tonight to hold space and show support for our family and friends who are facing infertility. Tonight, we're going to hear from 10 experts on varying topics relating to the emotional impact of infertility on one's daily life, as well as insight into what quarantine lifestyle looks like for the 1 in 8 men and women who live this almost daily. Before we begin, we're going to take pause and say a prayer for all of those who need a complete recovery at this time.
So Rabbi Bleisher, do you want to go ahead and say Kapitel Tehillim?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Shalom alo sasayna leharim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai yosei shamayim v'aretz al yitein lamot raglecha al yonom shomerecha hinei lo yonom v'lo yishon shomer Yisrael Adonai shomerecha Adonai tzilcha yad yaminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach b'layla Adonai yishmorcha mikara yishmor es nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzeisecha u'voecha me'ata v'yad olam.
Thank you. Gila, you good for me to begin?
In a second, we need to
Go for
introduce
it.
your book.
All right. Go ahead.
Even though Devorah does not need an introduction, as many of you already know her, Devorah is our mental health consultant. She guides us in supporting the many men and women of Yesh Tikva. She is an exceptionally accomplished social worker who specializes in the care of maternal mental health, guiding these individuals through the pain of perinatal loss and infertility. Devorah is going to share tonight with us an insight into the life of quarantine.
Thank you, Gila. So to qualify what Gila is describing, when we were talking about the theme for this evening, we didn't quite know exactly how dark or difficult the last couple of weeks were going to get. But one of the things that I think was so startling to me was when I had a conference call a couple of nights ago as a part of our C3 program and listening to the women on our call who are facing primary infertility, who all of their cycles were completely shut down. And the one thing that kept resonating again and again was how similar it was for those who have experienced the struggle of infertility and how similar that is for those of us who are now sitting in quarantine or in quiet or in shelter in place. There is this sense, at least for me, of this feeling of like, when is this going to be over? What is the end of this story going to look like? When will I know the outcome? Like if you tell me I have to do this for 3 weeks, I could do anything for 3 weeks, but after 3 weeks, I'm going to be able to move on and live my life. And we hear this so much from couples and individuals who are struggling with infertility, is this idea of like, if I knew that in a year I'd have a baby, I could celebrate the year, maybe I'd even go on vacation if I had the money to pay for the vacation. But really, I don't have the ability to plan. I don't have the ability to consider what's going to happen in a month and 3 months' time. Everything feels very static. And I think that for the first time, perhaps for many people, they're getting an insight into that experience of those that are struggling to grow their family. That feeling of stuckness, that feeling of, I can't plan for tomorrow. I don't know what the summer is going to bring. I can't plan a vacation. I can't even know what my family will look like in a year's time. And I think for the first time, we are seeing and experiencing that deep darkness that people who are struggling with infertility feel on an extended basis. And that is where I think this is such an appropriate time for us to have this event. We talked about, is it appropriate? Like, we're dealing with so many other things. Why are we discussing infertility on the Thursday night, 2 weeks before Pesach, when everybody's home? I'm coughing, everybody else may be coughing too. Is this the time? And I felt like if anything, Gila and I discussed this, if anything, now's the perfect time, because it's going to resonate with us and those in the community on a very different level. And so this is the moment where we begin to hold space. This is the moment where we sit in quiet and we watch and we listen and we learn about how people in our community face struggle. In addition to the quarantine struggle, they face the struggle of trying to build their family. That's the stage for tonight. And then I want to talk a little bit, though, about what I wanted to kind of focus on for this evening. Many of you may know, many of you may not know, that the American Society of Reproductive Medicine shut down almost all or all infertility clinics across the country in the United States and in Canada. It is probably happening in other countries as well, not just the United States. My focus has been on the US and Canada. What this means for people is that they've literally were mid-cycle and they were told, just stop taking your meds because we're canceling the cycle on you. This was maybe their first IVF treatment that they were finally pursuing. They had gathered up enough money to pay for the medication, to pay for the treatment. They had had 3 unsuccessful IUIs before and were finally going for that IVF cycle, and it was stopped mid-cycle. Don't forget to even consider how much money was just wasted in just the injection medication alone, and nobody's paying that back. But there was a complete rupture, a moment where things began to finally feel like they were moving forward. And then all of a sudden ASRM closed the door and said, we need to stop everything complete with no letting you know. We will not be telling you. We don't know when our clinics are even going to reopen. Now think about that from the perspective of a woman, and most of women feel this feeling of, but my biological clock is ticking. Right? You say to me, okay, in a month, we'll start again, or in 6 months, we'll start again. In 6 months, my eggs are 6 months older. In 6 months, I'm losing 6 months worth of fertility possibility. In 6 months, I don't know, it's going to be the middle of the winter. Maybe my job, maybe I won't have a job. Maybe I'll have lost my insurance coverage that was going to pay, finally going to pay for this insurance for this cycle. And all of this rupture happens. And the feeling of extraordinary devastation, of something yet again being torn away, not something tangible, but something, just the possibilities, just the hopefulness of maybe now I will be able to grow my family. And I think that, there's a salt in the wound moment as well, when so many of us who are blessed with a family are home parenting our children, and many are complaining about it mightily, right? And yet there's no way to kind of step away from that when you are without children. You are faced with the pretty, graphic memes about what parents are going to do to their kids if this quarantine doesn't end soon, right? And there's no way to step away from that. And so I think that we want to take a moment of pause and acknowledge we are holding space for the grief that people are feeling right now, in the inability to move forward in this process, and the ability, this was their chance to move forward and to grow their family. This was it. This was their month. And it was ruptured, and it was torn to shreds in front of them, and they have no recourse. And they don't, and one of the hardest parts was every woman said to me, I'm not sure what I'm pinning my hope on right now, right? If you say to me in a month, in 6 months, but nobody's telling us when. And so to feel hopeful about the future is a very complex thing to feel right now. This is the struggle of couples that are dealing with infertility. This is the sense of being stuck in this middle zone without any real possibility of tomorrow being better, because they just don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. So for tonight, as we launch into our expert speakers, one after the next, who will share different facets of what it is to be dealing with infertility, for those of you who have experience and for those of you who just don't, but are curious and are open to being receptive to an increased sensitivity and increased awareness. Our hope will be that there will be multiple facets of this experience that you will go, wow, I never thought of that. I didn't think of that. Yesterday I had the opportunity, and I spoke with a friend, a colleague, and she said to me, the people that are in terms of the people that are dying, and she said, they won't be able to have a tahara. There'll be restrictions on the tahara because of the contagion. And there was that moment where I went, oh, I didn't think of that. Those are the moments that give us pause, and those are the moments that raise our level of sensitivity and alertness and awareness to those in our community. I hope that tonight, with each of our experts, you'll have that moment from one or from many. We will go, oh, I didn't think of that. And that will let us be more alert and more caring and more sensitive to those of us who are struggling with infertility, for those in our families who are struggling with infertility, to those that we wish were at our Pesach Seder who are struggling with infertility. Consider the pain of those around you, see them, hold space for them, and allow us as a communal space to take pause, to be compassionate. And our hope would be that this opportunity is one that in the future we will have no need for, or we will have many, many more shuls participating and supporting those that are in struggle. Liz, we got to go ahead and pass this on to the next speaker.
So just like Devorah, our next speaker is someone that many of you know and as well does not need an introduction. Dr. Talia Hinden oversees our Fertility Friends program. She pairs individuals with support of trained mentors on the other end of their similar journey. When she's not supporting the men and women of Yesh Tikvah, she is a school psychologist at Ben Porat Yosef in New Jersey. Tonight, she's going to share with us the impact of infertility on the couple as a unit.
Thank you so much, Gila. Thank you, Devorah, for those beautiful words of opening for tonight's event. And really thank you to Yesh Tikvah for coordinating this wonderful event and not allowing the current circumstances to impact this really powerful event that is now an annual event that I very much look forward to participating in every year. When facing infertility, relationships are very much impacted. And research actually indicates that women tend to pull back from their relationships when they're experiencing infertility and going through their treatments. There's a fear of real stigma, and therefore they don't want to talk about it. There's a fear of those that they have relationships with not understanding what they're going through and therefore not wanting to connect. And this pulling back can impact those friendships, those family relationships, and especially at a time when really support is so crucial. And another important relationship that is very much impacted is that of the couple. So I want to take a few moments to talk about that this evening. So as Vera mentioned, if you are a couple facing infertility, I hope that this gives voice to some of what you may be feeling, that it validates some of these very real and intense, and at times very intense feelings. And if you are here to learn and to learn how to show support, I hope this gives an understanding of what some of your friends and family members might be experiencing. For some couples, the experience of infertility may bring them closer. It might be something that they can bond over as they find ways to provide support to one another. It's certainly a very personal experience. For many couples, however, it's a real source of stress and tension, regardless of how strong their relationship may have been before. And there are many factors that contribute to it. I think one of the primary factors is that a couple's sexual life, such an important, crucial part of a marriage, becomes very prescribed and feels very goal-driven. We need to follow the doctor's orders. This is what the doctor told us to do. This is our homework for this evening. And their sexual life becomes about creating a baby, rather about connecting on this new emotional level. There may be one member of the couple that feels more at fault, that it's their fault for the couple's experience with infertility. The woman may feel guilty that it's her body which is not showing up as needed or as expected. She may feel her husband doesn't understand and can't relate to what she's going through, both physically and emotionally. There may be differences of opinion, how much information to share with others, with whom to share, how aggressive to be with treatment, what the timeline of treatment should be. They may have very different coping mechanisms for how they're dealing with this stressful experience in their life. And the questions about financial investment, both the stress that creates, but also the questions of how much do we invest financially. As we think about the upcoming Yom Tif, so Yom Tov is a time of particular challenge for a couple facing infertility. Yom Tov is a time that we're focused on family. It's a time that we spend with family, and family members may not know about their struggles and therefore can't provide support and can't be extra considerate for those around them. And they may be with family members that have new babies and many children. And this experience reinforces those negative feelings about their own situation. It highlights the fear of the unknown of their own future. What does our future hold in terms of our dreams for a family? And it's a constant reminder of this huge void in their life. And certainly Pesach in particular, because of the whole idea of V'higadat Levincha, that the goal of the Pesach Seder night is to teach the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, to help our children understand what Bnei Israel went through as they crossed the Yam Suf. And this tremendous focus on children is a real source of pain for those couples who don't yet have children, who are yearning for more. And it's a constant reminder of this huge void in their life. I think this year, given the current situation, many couples will, maybe not according to their plans, but will be spending Yom Tov alone. And this is, on one hand, a unique opportunity, a situation that wouldn't otherwise happen other than given the extenuating circumstances that we find ourselves in today. And perhaps this can be harnessed and as an opportunity for couples to bond with one another. Likely we will have a lot more time to spend with one another, and for couples to spend it sharing, connecting on different levels, to use it as a time to begin developing their own family structure and their own family minhagim, creating an image and a picture of what their Seder table will look like for many years to come. And to use this opportunity as a source of strength to get through Yom Tov and to provide energy to continue beyond as a stronger and more connected entity, and to be able to continue on their journey together more connected. And I wish everyone a Chag Kasher v'Sameach.
Thank you, Dr. Hendon. Our next speaker, Rabbi Bleisher, is a rabbi of the Elmore Hills Binyan in Union, New Jersey, and an adjunct professor at Yeshiva University, Rabbi Isaac Elchanan Theological Seminar. He is also a licensed clinical social worker in private practice in Teaneck, New Jersey, and the deputy director of behavioral health at Ezras Cholim Health Center in Kiryas Yoel. Tonight, he will share with us the depth of the emotional experience of a man facing infertility.
Thank you, Gila. It's a privilege to be part of the presentation tonight. And it's inspiring to see how the creativity and the commitment to couples that are on their fertility journey, COVID-19 cannot stop this community from connecting. And it's a really great opportunity to be able to address some of the issues, the emotional issues that men who are navigating infertility struggle with and try to cope with on a daily basis. Today, still in Los Angeles, for those of you on the West Coast, is or was a very special day. The day of Rosh Chodesh Nisan is a day of rebirth. It's a day of Geula. It's a day when we begin to have the opportunity to recite a bracha that we only can recite during this month when we see a blossoming fruit tree. And it's a tree that just a couple of weeks ago was barren, looked almost dead. And yet over the past couple of days and weeks, potential is just bursting forth. The buds are now blossoming today. And yet for so many, this time of year does not really bring a lot of hope. We can't see the potential and not even consolation. Instead, a journey of infertility can lead to feelings of loneliness, of really despair. A man might feel that there's nobody like him. He looks around in shul on Yom Tov, and Yirtzeh Hashem, the shul should reopen so that we can gather again. And he looks around during Birchas Kohanim beforehand and afterwards, and he's the only one without a child under his talus. His friends are making brisim for their sons, and kiddushim for their daughters, and upsharons and bar and bas mitzvahs, and he has no such opportunities. He has no one else other than his wife. And so on Shabbos, they go to family or for Yom Tov, and they're with siblings who have nieces and nephews, and it's just the two of them in the afternoon. They're offered to be the kvater at a bris over and over, and yet when it comes to the Sudas Mitzvah, the meal after the ceremony, they sit alone. They have no way of joining the PTA. They have no opportunity to join a parent-child learning program on a Motzei Shabbos. And he has no one to dance with on Simchas Torah to put on his shoulders. It almost feels like his life is stuck while his friends' lives socially are growing in leaps and bounds. We're all acutely aware now of what loneliness feels like, of people who are alone in hospitals without loved ones. And we wish them a refuah shalema. As this pandemic spreads, we hope that it stops. We hope that those who are healthy continue to maintain their health. And we hope that HaKadosh Baruch Hu offers a nechama, a consolation for those who have already lost loved ones in this pandemic. And this loneliness that we're feeling today might be most profoundly felt at the night of the Seder on the first and second night of Pesach here in exile. As Dr. Hendon just mentioned, the Higgadah Lebincha, we're commanded to educate our children about the miraculous story of redemption of the Jewish people, the Exodus from Egypt. And the Rambam writes that this mitzvah applies to everybody. person who doesn't have children is not exempt from this mitzvah. They have to recite it to themselves. They might not have a child to repeat it to. And this year, perhaps for the first time in generations, parents, grandparents will not have the opportunity to share that story with their children and grandchildren. But being exempt because one doesn't have a child technically doesn't really make the man feel better when he's struggling with infertility. He feels like his identity is deficient. He's physically incompetent. Peru or Avu is his mitzvah to be fruitful and to multiply. And there's so much pressure that he's holding. Women have support networks. They have people, mikveh attendants, friends. They're more likely to open up and to share those dark, heavy emotions that are weighing on their hearts. Tonight's presentations includes mostly female presenters. And that's okay, because men typically don't reach out. They're less open about their feelings. He's working harder to cover the financial burden, perhaps, which makes him resentful, angry, burnt out. He doesn't show his emotional stress. And when he identifies these feelings that he's holding inside, he feels like it's too much of a burden for him to share it because he needs to be a rock. He needs to be solid for his wife. And when he wants to open up, and he finally decides, okay, we're going to pursue treatment together, there's more loneliness. She's dealing with doctor's appointments, with blood draws, with injections, with medications, and he's not really involved in that very much. He might accompany her. He might offer to give her the injection, but ultimately he's causing her pain that he wishes he could take upon himself if he could, but he can't. He's helpless and alone. And so when she goes through a pregnancy loss, God forbid, he's suffering, but it's not the same. He's losing hope. And they each cling to their emunah, to their faith in a very different way. He's alone in supporting his wife through her grief because we don't have a halachic process. We don't have customs and minhagim to be able to concretely respect the loss that they've endured. A study from 2007 suggests that when men are faced with male factor infertility, when they're going through their own treatments, they actually simulate, they have the same levels of despair, of distress. The toll that it takes on a woman is replicated in a man who's going through a similar process. But he doesn't feel like he has any acceptable outlets to ask for help, to vent, to release some of those really tough feelings inside of him. And the pressure that he's feeling can be destabilizing. There's nobody available to validate him. He doesn't let them in. No one can listen to the thoughts that he can't even articulate verbally, let alone share. And so the impact is profound. Anxiety, depression, physical illness. And as a result, he goes from yesh tikva to ein tikva. He stops going away for Shabbos and Yom Tov. He drops out of family simchas. And sometimes he even drops out of the community. And so if we can raise an awareness, if we can help them learn how to communicate these feelings, to know that they're 1 in 8, you're not alone. We see the pain. And we're giving you space to be able to express that in your own way, however you can, to validate, to give him permission to vent and to grieve when necessary, to cry with him, to laugh with him, to include him, to acknowledge his pain, and to hold space without doing anything or having to do anything, and to remember that he's not alone. During this month of Geula, this month of redemption, we hope that soon we'll all merit to be able to sing that we'll be able to sing a new song to God as God redeems us and redeems our souls from the shackles, from the despair, from the isolation and the loneliness that holds us back. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Bleischer. Our next speaker, Rachel Herkman, is a licensed social worker and psychotherapist, relationship consultant, speaker, sex therapist, and clinical director of the Layers Project. Tonight, she will share with us the impact of infertility on a couple's sexual relationship.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? I feel like half of Zoom conversations is someone asking if they are muted or not. Oh, I am muted now or I'm not? I'm unmuted.
You're good.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, when they first told me to talk about sex for 5 minutes, I said, takes me 5 minutes just to introduce myself. So this was actually a great exercise for me. I'm really happy that this topic is being addressed, especially now, given what everyone is going through being at home with social distancing, because I find that when people are in survival mode, they're very focused on their own situation in front of them. And it's important as a community for us to understand the different ways that what's going on right now, how it's landing for different members of our community, especially I feel couples that are going through infertility, it's particularly painful right now. Now, in any long-term relationship, regardless of whether there are fertility challenges, a couple will usually have changes in their sex life. And that is something that is very normal and very common with all long-term relationships. Now, when a couple faces infertility, their sex life takes on added stress, and that can influence their sex life in a variety of ways, which I could speak about for hours, but I can't right now. But it affects them physiologically, it affects them emotionally, it could affect their sexual performance. Now, I find that when a couple has a positive sexual relationship before, let's say, they face infertility, so hopefully sex is a source of pleasure and a source of connection. Okay. What ends up happening often when a couple starts dealing with infertility, especially long-term infertility, is that the sex becomes very fused with the infertility. So then sex is not an escape for them, right? The sex is not an escape for them to just enjoy themselves. The sex actually can be a big reminder for them of what is not happening in their relationship in terms of fertility, and also that uncertainty of when will this happen for us. And whereas before the sex could be about pleasure, now sex becomes about pressure. Whereas before the sex is hopefully more about connection, now it becomes more about procreation. And I find that that can really affect couples in a variety of ways, because men and women obviously have different emotional reactions to things. I will say, I think that in our society, sometimes the emotions of men are totally oversimplified in a way that's really unfair to men. I've seen very often where there are situations where the man will, let's say, feel that it's hurtful to him that his wife only wants to have sex right now because she might be ovulating, and he wants to feel like it's more than just let's try to get pregnant, or it could be the other way around also. And so there's various ways that these things can play out for couples. What I do find also is that if a couple had positive memories, positive sexual memories before infertility took over their life, they are going to be, I find they will be in a different category than, let's say, a couple that their sex life beforehand was not something that was positive or satisfying for them. Because when a couple is going through any difficult stretch of time sexually, if they have memories in the bank, that can help carry them through. Whereas couples that do not have those memories in the bank, it could be added stress. As a community, I find that right now in particular, there's some very difficult things going on for couples' sex lives who are facing infertility. As has been mentioned, we have this unprecedented pause in fertility treatments, which is like, it's like, it's unbelievable. I understand why, I'm not going to get into that stuff, but like, it is what it is. But that these couples now can't continue with their treatments. We have mikvahs that are either closing or have much stricter rules, and certainly for people who are immunocompromised or they're people, whatever it is. So going to the mikvah has become a much more sensitive, anxiety-provoking experience for many people. And then you have sex that, as we said, could be triggering for couples. And you also have women who are not on birth control right now because they would like to get pregnant through their treatments. We have women who, for medical reasons, should not be getting pregnant without interventions. Let's say, they're both a carrier for a certain genetic disease, right? So they're a couple that, their doctor might tell them it's really better off that, we do IVF, let's say. So they're at home. She's not on birth control. They're not supposed to be getting pregnant naturally. Mikvah's complicated. She can't have treatments, and they need to spend 24/7 together, while everyone online is joking about baby booms and how they're done with homeschooling their kids, right? So many different, pieces to that could be very, very painful from a sexual perspective of a couple. And to wrap up, I would say something else I think is really important for couples to think about, and as a community for us to think about, is to really understand that there's really no trophy in going at things alone. And we sometimes value self-sufficiency and independence. And many couples go through that painful learning process that it's okay to reach out for help, and that it's okay to go get medical treatment, let's say, if you're not getting pregnant. And I find sometimes we'll be quicker to go get medical help when we're struggling with something, but not necessarily get mental health support when we're struggling. And that there are ways that a couple's sex life can get better, even though it can feel like it's in a rut, and it may not always be like that forever. There is help that's available, and that very often the empowerment message that people throw out there is, you got this, you got this. And I'm like, you know what? It's we got this. We have so many things in our community that we all share and struggles, and we got this, and that we're all in this together. And that I don't think many of the things we go through life, we're not really supposed to go through by ourselves. So the more we can normalize what it means to find our people, to get the help we need, whether it means going to therapy, or if someone's in therapy already, trying to talk about your sex life if you haven't talked about it yet, because it is something that it can get better, but because there's a lot of shame in talking about it, people don't, sometimes they don't get the help they need. So with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Rachel. Our next speaker is Andrea Surtash. She is a New York-based dating and relationship writer, online broadcaster, and author and founder of Pregnantish. Pregnantish is a media site that helps people navigate the challenges of infertility and fertility treatments. Tonight, she will introduce us to the world of surrogacy and third-party reproduction.
Hi everyone. I know these are crazy times, but infertility is still on our brains, in my brain for sure. It does not go away depending on circumstances. In fact, sometimes it intensifies when other things get in the way of us trying to build our families with help. So I wanted to just share a quick note about gestational surrogacy, which is a form of third-party reproduction. Traditional surrogacy means that the surrogate uses her own egg, but today that's more and more unusual. So gestational means that in this case, we used my genetic egg, my husband's sperm, and then put it in a carrier because my uterine environment could not sustain a pregnancy. My biggest advice or insight, I guess, because I don't even like giving advice for these things, every body is literally different, is to expect the unexpected. Just like infertility, surrogacy has twists and turns. You have to be comfortable with the person you are working with who's literally carrying life for you. I mean, there's no greater job, I don't think. And it's a relationship that's going to last a long time, and definitely for the duration of the pregnancy, before and after. What's involved in it is medical, legal, financial, counseling. There's so many steps to it. So you're going to get a sense of each other through that for sure. But I cannot stress enough to keep communication open and expectations in check. What's involved in getting a surrogate, you can do it independently. In my case, we worked with my first cousin, but we worked with her after 2 surrogates in Canada dropped out on us. So going with a reputable agency, if you're not working with a family member or friend, is a good idea, or a good fertility lawyer. Just you want someone advocating for you and helping you navigate it, because it's completely unknown and new, and you want really good contracts in place, and you want to be patient with everybody because you want to get it right. I also think that like a really important part of managing expectations in this process is checking in and asking your carrier, how are you doing? What do you need? How can I help? And then have your friends and family support you, because you are expecting in that case. It's not just your surrogate expecting, it's you, and that can get lost. So for those looking at this option, I think it's very exciting. For me, it was a game changer. I wouldn't have my now 15-month-old without that. I had had pregnancy loss. I'd gone through 18 fertility treatments over 8 years. I call myself an ovary achiever. That's why I started Pregnantish also, because It's just so isolating and crazy to go through this. So please check out Pregnantish for more advice, and there's articles on surrogacy there as well. But I just think, it can be a great blessing when it works. So I'm wishing you the best.
Thank you to Andrea. Our next speaker is Rabbi Jason Weiner. Rabbi Weiner is an expert in Jewish medical ethics. He is a board-certified chaplain serving as the senior rabbi and director of the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center's Spiritual Care Department in Los Angeles, as well as the rabbi of Knesset Israel of Beverlywood. Tonight, he will give us a glimpse into the questions that arise while facing a fertility journey.
Hi, okay, can you hear me? Good.
Yes.
So thank you. It's really an honor to be here with you and a pleasure. And I'm really enjoying the presentations. I'm learning a lot, and the supportive community is really so inspiring and special. I thought, Gila asked me to just share some interesting halachic issues that arise. And so I figured I'll share something a little bit different, if that's okay, meaning some kind of new things that we're dealing with. And I'll just share with you the two most recent, obviously kind of at the hospital right now, everything's on pause, but two of the issues that we were dealing with in terms of trying to create policy that are relevant and people should just be aware of, because it's could be very helpful and something that needs to be spoken about. One is fetus transplantations. There is now, fetus transplantations? I said uterus transplantations. Uterine transplantations is something that's now possible. It's happening only at very few hospitals in the country. We at Cedars-Sinai are trying to launch a program. It's happened at Brown University, at Cleveland Clinic. And it's a very interesting possibility for the future to think about, for people who have, for whom infertility is related to their uterus, who would otherwise, as we've heard in some of the previous presentations, consider surrogacy, which is also a really wonderful opportunity. And so many people are really heroes in helping with that. For people who would rather try to be able to carry their child in their own uterus, another possibility will be uterus donations, because what will have to happen is that a person will receive a donation from someone else. The way it will work, or it already is working, is that it can even come from a postmenopausal woman. The uterus can be donated, and then the recipient receives the uterus, which is a complicated surgery. It's more complicated than other organ donations. And they actually just keep it for as long as they want to have children, oftentimes one, sometimes two, and then they have the uterus removed. And it's, in addition to being complex medically, it does bring up some interesting questions, meaning there are other options. People don't have to have a child only in that manner through having a uterus transplant. And it's very expensive and involves some risk. But then again, there's much benefit. Also, there's questions of serous related. I mean, is it problematic for a person to give up their uterus in order to donate it to someone else? Really, the rabbis are supportive of this. The rabbis that we've consulted about this have been very supportive. Once there are multiple options, it's still in early phases, so it's not always successful, but it's an interesting up and coming option that's becoming available in more and more places. In addition to uterus transplantation, I thought I'll just mention one other that's new just because we're dealing with it now a lot, but it's obviously not so new, and that is posthumous sperm retrieval. We're developing a policy at Cedars-Sinai right now. It's happening all over. It's happened in Israel quite a few times. And that is where, in Israel, where it first happened frequently was where men would die in service in the armed forces. And the family would be so distraught, and they would want to have a way of keeping on, as we say in Yibum, a shem v'zecher. They want to keep the person's lineage alive, so to speak. But it also happens, frequently people are in love and they are planning on having children, and then unfortunately a man dies unexpectedly and they want to still use his sperm. Now, it has to be retrieved very quickly. You only have, depending on, there's difference of opinion, but about 24 to 48 hours to retrieve the sperm. Obviously, there's issues of consent and approval. What if the man's parents don't want him to have a child this way, or they do, and his partner does or doesn't, and there's a conflict between family members? What about issues of grief? we, and in our policy that we're putting together, we are requiring, and this was based on what post-game told me, a 6-month waiting period, that the sperm can be retrieved, but then it has to be frozen and banked. And we're asking people to wait some time. We've had experiences where people had sperm retrieved posthumously and wanted to right away have a child with their recently deceased husband, and it's part of the grief process, and didn't do it right away for various reasons. And then 6 months down the line, a year down the line, met someone else, kind of moved on in a certain way, and are glad that they didn't do it. Some people are happy that they did it. I'm just saying that sometimes these decisions need a little bit of time to think through the proper approach. So this is something that we're also doing with tremendous COVID Roche, carefully. This is really bringing a life into the world, and we have to do it carefully, but it's possible. And it requires a little bit of forethought and planning. And it's just a really interesting, and not just that it's interesting provocatively, but it's just an issue that we need to think about. And what I'll just conclude with this, what I'm inspired by always is that, when it comes to fertility questions that arise, we find the post team to be extremely understanding and flexible and wanting to work with the new technology and help people to achieve their dream and their goal of having children in the various ways that might include. And so these are just two contemporary examples, but it's really an important and interesting new area, and our rabbis are hard at work ensuring that we can utilize them in the most proper manners.
Thank you, Rabbi Weiner. Our next speaker is Amy Klein. Amy Klein is a writer well known for her column in the New York Times called The Fertility Diary, and she now has published a book called The Trying Game: How to Get Pregnant and Get Through Fertility Treatments based on this column. Without losing your, sorry, I just missed part of the name. It's called How to Get Pregnant and Get Through Fertility Treatments Without Losing Your Mind. Tonight, she's going to lend insight into experience of navigating a fertility journey from the medical end.
Hi, thank you for having me. I wanted to talk about my own fertility experience.
Sorry, Amy, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Can you increase your volume somehow? It's a little difficult to hear you.
This is the best I can do. How about now? I got married. I met my husband when I was 39, and we got married just right after I turned 41. And I know people talk about sometimes when people are older that they were selfish or that they were focusing on their career. And most people don't purposely put off baby making like I didn't, because I just hadn't met someone, and I didn't meet my husband till then, and we couldn't start trying until we got married. And I got pregnant the week after my wedding, and I had, unfortunately, my first of 4 miscarriages. And then we went on a honeymoon, and I had a miscarriage again, and then I started fertility treatment. And I'm not exactly going to talk about it from a medical perspective. I'll just talk about it from my perspective because I'm not a doctor. And when I started this treatment in about 2011, we got married in 2011, so I was doing it in 2011, 2012. There wasn't any information out there, and I felt very alone what I was going through because I didn't know who to talk about it, because I got pregnant, but I couldn't tell anyone because I kept losing it. And I didn't want to tell anyone until I was really pregnant. And I felt, not only did I feel really alone, but I felt there was a secret world and nobody really understood what I was going through, because on the one hand, I had a lot of single friends who just thought I should be happy that at least I got married. And on the other hand, I felt a lot of judgment. Well, what did you expect? You waited so long. Didn't you think like you were going to have a hard time? And the truth is I didn't. I was living in Los Angeles. I was the editor of the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles. And I moved to New York, and I moved to the Upper West Side at 39. And that was kind of crazy to think I would meet someone. And I met someone when I moved to New York in 3 months. And I didn't think I would have trouble getting pregnant. And I didn't have trouble getting pregnant. I had trouble staying pregnant. And I remember one time when someone called me, a friend, I guess she was about my age, and she called me to ask me to go for a manicure with her. And I couldn't go. Thank God I couldn't go that day, because she just said, I wanted to tell you in person, but I guess I'll tell you on the phone. I wanted to tell you I'm pregnant. I said, thank God I wasn't there with her in person, because I just started crying. And, I said Mazel Tov, and I hung up the phone, but I didn't understand why she wanted to tell me in person. I mean, she said she knew that I was having a hard time and she just wanted to tell me, but, I was crying, and my husband said to me, her pregnancy doesn't take away from our lack of a baby. It's not like there's only a few people in the world, only a few babies. And he said, why can't you be happy for her? And I just said, I'm not that good a person. Like, I just can't be, because I don't have any happiness in me. And that's not who I am as a person. I usually try to be happy for everybody, for everything, but I couldn't. And I don't think that people really understand it. They want you to be positive. They want you to look at the bright side. They want you to keep your eye on the ball. But, I went through 3 years and 4 miscarriages and 10 doctors in 3 countries. We went to Israel, and my husband's Israeli. And, I try to have faith, but you're always waiting. Your life is on hold. And, we picked up and we moved to Israel. So I lost my network of people. And, for some people, the challenge is getting pregnant. But for me, every time I got pregnant, I said, okay, that's great. But, someone said to me, well, at least you could get pregnant. And I wanted to, punch them in the face and be like, well, at least, your nose is bleeding. It doesn't really help. So, when you experience, like, I experienced a lot of pregnancy loss, and I experienced people getting pregnant around me. There was a time that my younger sister was pregnant, and my younger brother, was expecting his 5th child. And, a relative of mine was talking to me on the phone about what she was knitting the kids. And I just was thinking, I'm strong, but I'm not this strong. Like, I can't do this. I can't handle this. And I kind of made a promise to myself. I said, by the time those babies are born, I will be pregnant. And I mean, not that I have any control of it, but I don't know how I would have made it through that year, because, when my sister finally had a baby in February, I finally got pregnant in November. And, but it's not easy. And most people are not going to understand what you're going through. And the thing is that you have to just be easy on yourself. And it's hard. And it was hard when I was going through it. And I can't imagine what people are going through right now. People who have to stop treatment, people who have to be told that they can't get pregnant because they have too many complications, or, time is ticking and you can't freeze embryos. And, if you can't go to the mikvah, it's really hard to sit here. And the only thing that I want to say to people who are going through this is be kind to yourself. Like, don't expect more than you can do right now, because it's hard. It's hard to sit home, whether you're in like my tiny New York apartment or a bigger house somewhere else. It's hard to, wait, and it's hard to have yet, someone said to me, I just wrote an article for the Jewish Week, and they said, I feel like there's a higher power now that's telling me that I can't get pregnant. Like, there's just another thing getting in the way. So to people who are going through it, I just want to say, be kind to yourself and don't expect more than you can give. Don't expect to be positive. Don't expect to be Pollyanna. It's just know that it's hard, and hopefully things will change in the future. And then to people who, I think it's like anything else. If you're dealing with someone who's sick, or you're dealing with someone who's going through a struggle, don't give advice. Hold that space for them to have the bad moments, and hold that space for them to have the low moments and the no faith and the anger at God and the upsetness at their husband. And just the best way to be there to someone is to listen and to just say, how can I help? Because that's really the only thing that you can do. And I just want to say to everyone who has to, sitting in their homes with the pandemic as well as infertility, I hope it really ends soon, and I hope that this time that you're taking out doesn't impact your fertility treatment. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Our next speaker is Yoetzet Halacha Tova Warburg-Sinensky. Tova serves as a Yoetzet for Teaneck, Toco Hills, and the Greater Philadelphia and South Jersey community. She serves on the advisory committees of the Jewish Fertility Foundation and of the Eden Center, and teaches Judaic studies at Frisch High School in New Jersey.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so honored and privileged to be here, and improvising under the current circumstances is really incredible that we can provide this support and enlightenment for the community. Many of us are able to support our family and friends who are going through infertility because perhaps to efforts such as Yesh Tikvah, they now are comfortable sharing with us the ins and the outs or a day in the life of someone who's dealing with infertility, the appointments, the procedures, the early morning tests, the labs. But what we might not really hear about is something that feels maybe even more personal, which is the experience of observing Tahara Mishpacha as someone with infertility. So what is it like to observe and experience Tahara Mishpacha with this added struggle? I want to just walk you through some of the common questions that I received to help create understanding and therefore allow us to be more empathic and more supportive. When it comes to the experience of nida, so for those not experiencing infertility, this might, for some, be basically a breeze and not really so challenging. For those experiencing infertility, I might hear something like, it's just more time to feel anxiety that I can't conceive, and more time to worry about what will happen when we do try. For those not experiencing infertility, I might hear something like, I want to be with my spouse and this is really hard, which is a common sentiment. And for those experiencing infertility, I might hear, I need to be with my spouse. I cannot conceive, I cannot achieve my goal without that. And the doctor also said that we can't even move on to the next level of treatment without first trying one more time the regular way. And I just can't wait to get that over with and move on. When it comes to the 7 clean days of Shiva Nikiyim, for someone who's not experiencing infertility, I might hear, wow, checking, so many things to remember, Badikot, I'm just totally crazed. For someone experiencing infertility, I might hear, I have to remember to check. And on top of all of that and the things going on in my life, talk to the doctor, email the nurse, try to get insurance to cover IVF, like that's ever happening, try to get a grant, things that most people don't have to pay for. Or I might hear, with regards to the question of what's my status, am I nida or not, I might hear, is it a stain, is it a flow? I don't even know, this birth control is causing me so many issues. And for someone who's experiencing infertility, I might hear, I wish I had the privilege of your birth control problems. For me, the question of my status is the difference between missing ovulation and not missing ovulation because I have such a small window. It's the difference between potentially spending thousands of dollars and hours or trying to just feel and be normal. Or when it comes to questions that we often get about prolonged nida, I might hear from someone not experiencing infertility, my body's being so wacky, I've been in nida for a really long time, I just had a baby, just got off a pill, I'm in perimenopause, gosh, this is so hard, I don't know what's going on. And for someone who's experiencing infertility, I might hear, I've been in nida for a very long time due to being on and off hormones during IVF, and I'm in so much emotional pain right now that being distant is so physically and emotionally challenging. Is there any solution? Or we haven't been able to have intercourse at all because we're doing IVF with PGD and we're actually not allowed to be together. We haven't been able to have a regular marriage in months and months. When it comes to the mitzvah experience, I might hear from someone who's not experiencing infertility, even though mitzvah preparation is stressful sometimes and hard and juggling and hiding and trying to get out at night, mitzvah night in general is exciting and enjoyable. For those experiencing infertility, I am more likely to hear mitzvah might be a total nightmare for me. I don't want to go to that place for any more months than I have to because I associate it with dashed hopes and dreams. And being with my spouse feels more like a chore than something exciting. When it comes to medical procedures, we get lots of questions about medical procedures. I might hear from someone not experiencing infertility, I'm having a medical procedure during my 7 clean days. Oh my gosh, how did I schedule this? Can you please help me understand what the halachic implications are? And from someone experiencing infertility, I might hear, my entire life is one big medical procedure with halachic questions. How do we do semen collection halachically? What do I do about injections for IVF on Shabbat? What happens if my transfer and retrieval, which the doctor promised won't happen on Shabbat, does go out on Shabbat? What if it's on a 3-day Yom Tov and I have to stay at a hotel in another community near a doctor's office? These are some of the questions that we get, and hopefully it's clear kind of the difference between those of us who are experiencing Nida and observing Tahara Mishpacha sort of regularly, and those with this added stress of infertility. And I think that we can be there for those who need us by understanding their experience. So thank you for being here tonight to learn about an aspect that you may not have heard about from your friends and family. And hopefully this will add to our ability to support and empathize with those who really need our support at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Tova. Our next speaker is Ariella Mortakowicz. Ariella is the epitome of community. With her background in nonprofit strategic planning and organizational growth, she has dedicated herself to others and created many incredible organizations in support of the Jewish community, including inspiring, supporting, connecting, and celebrating Jewish womanhood. Tonight, she will share with us about the importance of community.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you for doing this tonight. Community is literally coming out in spades right now on my computer. And I am so glad to see that you are committed to showing up for everyone who needs community right now. Community is a critical tool in so many of our life journeys. And unfortunately, community often becomes an inadvertent contributor to pain during an already stressful and heartbreaking infertility experience. Jewish community, we all know, is so family-oriented and child-centered. So much of our celebrations and communal spaces are all about family, and it leaves anyone without family or struggling to build a family on the fringes. And it can push people to actually, unfortunately, further isolate and remove themselves from community at the particular point when communal support is actually such a critical tool and a powerful coping tool, which is why I am so and have always been so supportive of the work that Yesh Tikva does, bringing our communal awareness forward, creating room for conversations where there were none before, elevating our sensitivity to the struggles of others, and teaching us how we as community members can show up in support and in love. I run Sviva, which is super fun, which is made up of a very diverse and multi-generational collective of women, different ages, different affiliations, different communities, totally different communities. And at our very first gathering, we asked women to sit in groups of 4 and introduce themselves, get to know one another, and we asked them the following question. At what point in your life do you wish that your spiritual community had shown up better for you? So that is a great question and a hard one, and you can take time to think about the answer for yourself, because I think it's an important one that we should all address and answer. But in every single group, to a T, there was at least one woman in each group who had answered that question with, when I was struggling with infertility. 1 in every 4 women in that room articulated that she had struggled with infertility. These were women from different generations, different synagogues, different states, and all different walks of life. And in each group, infertility was the common denominator. I wish my community had been there for me when I was struggling. So Gila, Ellie, what you're doing with Yesh Tikva is such a critical piece of community. You're empowering and educating the broader community to understand how to be there and how to serve people the way community is intended to serve people. Community is supposed to make us feel like we belong. It's supposed to make us feel like we're understood. It's supposed to support us. And it's supposed to help us accomplish the hard things, the things that we couldn't necessarily do on our own. We all need community in the valleys of our life, the valleys that life brings us, just as much, if not more so, that we do when we're at our peaks. And I think, as you know, so many of the other amazing speakers tonight have articulated, the disappointment in community it comes accidentally. I don't think that people intend to be hurtful or insensitive. I think there's a lack of understanding, and often the privacy of this struggle leaves people really ignorant. But I do believe that people want to be supportive and helpful, but most of the time they struggle to understand what that looks like. Fertility is such a turbulent journey. It's disappointing, it's hopeful, it's exhausting, it's stressful, it's infuriating, it's painful, it's tentative, it's depressing, it's isolated, and it can be hard for those who haven't experienced the roller coaster of infertility to understand how to show up in each one of those different moments. So what I love about Yesh Tikva is that you give us those tools. You help us understand how to be the community that we want to be, and you give us the tools to show our love and our support. And I just want to thank you for all of this work, and thank you for helping us to help people we love and care about. And I just want to send enormous love and hugs if that person is you. So thank you.
Thank you, Ariella. And for our final speaker, Rachel Tuckman. Rachel Tuckman is a licensed mental health counselor with over 10 years of experience. She's worked with many diverse populations, including but not limited to incarcerated women, individuals with developmental delays and behavioral issues, navigating difficulty in life circumstances, including divorce, parenting challenges, and infertility. Tonight, she's going to lead us in a mindfulness exercise that will help us lead this event and take us into the next days and weeks ahead of us.
Thank you so much. This was such a great evening. I learned so much from all of you, such incredible speakers. I want to just give like a little brief intro into why mindfulness is so important. I actually was trained in mindfulness and DBT when I was working in Rikers Island jail about 12 years ago. So I always say, if it can work for the women in Rikers Island, it can work for anyone. And I feel like now a lot of those feelings were expressed tonight that the women that I was working with at Rikers felt, feeling trapped, feeling like there's no hope, not knowing when they were going to go home and see their families, not knowing what the future was holding. All those feelings, everybody's experiencing those same feelings on some level. We're all grieving and feeling uncertainty on some level in many different areas of our lives. So mindfulness has been shown to be a great help in reducing stress and anxiety, helping ground you. And the purpose of it is to keep you present. It's to keep you focused on the here and the now, and not to get so lost in the future of what will be, because we know that we have no real way of knowing that, or what was, right? To keep us out of the past, to keep us out of the future, and to keep us present and grounded. So I'm going to ask everyone, if you want to turn off your camera because you feel funny, if you feel like I'm like looking at you while you're meditating, you can totally turn off your camera. If you're confident in your meditation skills, keep it on, but I'm not judging, just an FYI, okay? I'm going to look down also so that I'm kind of, in the mindfulness exercise with you. So the first thing I want you to do is sit comfortably in your chair, kind of adjust yourself so that your back is straight, not rigid and tight, just like straight, but relaxed, shoulders back. Put your hands, rest your hands like on your lap, on your legs somewhere. Make sure that your feet are on the floor. You can cross your ankles or uncross them, but keep your feet on the floor. And just start kind of like relaxing, kind of taking notice of your breath. Notice how your chair feels underneath you. Feel like the cushion underneath you. Notice if your chair is too hard or too soft or just right. Take note of the sounds around you. Maybe your window is open in your home and you hear cars passing by, or maybe it's just very quiet in your home, or maybe there are people around you making noise, or the phone is ringing, or something is beeping. Take notice of it. I don't want it to annoy you. I just want you to hear it. I want you to notice it. Notice how your clothes feel on your body. So how your shirt feels on your body, if you're wearing a skirt, if you feel it like near your ankles or near your knees, how your slippers feel on your feet if you're wearing them. Notice the taste in your mouth. If you just brushed your teeth, or if you had coffee earlier, notice that taste. Again, don't get lost in like, oh, but my breath probably smells. Like, don't worry about it. I just want you to notice it. And when you're ready, if your eyes are not closed already, I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to take a deep breath in and hold it at the top. And then release that breath. Exhale through your nose. And then you inhale again, and you hold it at the top. And then you exhale. Notice any shifts in the sound around you. Notice any shifts in your breathing. If you have a computer in front of you, you can notice the fan maybe making that noise in front of you. Notice where your mind is going when you're doing all this. Are you thinking about a to-do list? Are you thinking, this is so weird? What's this lady talking about? Just note them and keep trying to come back to the present. It's okay if your mind wanders. It's normal. It's good. I want you to notice those thoughts and just keep trying to come back. Notice any bodily sensations that you have. If you feel like a tightness in your back, or if you feel your feet kind of like, clenching and then releasing. Notice your feet. So wiggle your toes. And then we're going to start kind of doing like a body scan. And I always say a body scan is like a photocopy machine, how that light goes up and then it comes back down. Like that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that body scan. We're going to bring that light up from the bottom. So notice your feet, wiggle your toes, feel how your feet feel on the floor. Then move the tension up to your ankles. Move it then up to your calves and your knees. And then move that tension again up to your thighs and your hips. And notice how you might feel tension in your calves or in your legs. A lot of people have tension in their hips. That's where they hold stress, or in their lower back. So if you feel that, again, notice it. It's okay. I don't want your mind to start, beating yourself up about, oh, because I was doing this, or I was sitting like that, or I'm stressed, or I'm hunched. Just notice those thoughts. If those are coming to you, that's okay. Then bring that breath up to your stomach. Bring that tension, that feeling. You can even put your hand on your stomach to feel it rising and falling, and take another deep breath. Hold and exhale. Then move it up to your chest. And again, another deep breath. In and exhale. And notice if you have any tension in your chest. What does it feel like? Does it clear up when you're breathing? And then again, take a deep breath and let that come up to your neck and your shoulders. Can you relax your shoulders? Can you let go of some of that tension that you're feeling from the day, from work, from stress of being stuck at home, from whatever's going on in your life? Then up to your head. Again, that deep breath in and out. Notice if you're clenching your jaw. Are you wrinkling your eyebrows? Is your mouth slightly open? Is it closed? And then to the top of your head. And noticing how you feel at the top of your head. Kind of feeling like your scalp, how it feels, how your hair feels. And another inhale and an exhale. And then just kind of doing an overall scan. Is there any tension that you're noticing in your body? Do you feel a little bit calmer? Do you notice that you had a lot of tension in your body? And if you do, that's okay. Again, mindfulness is about just noticing without judgment. It's okay, however you feel. And take another deep breath and hold it and exhale. And you did your meditation. We are ready for world peace. If you can do these like at least once a day, really like a great mindfulness meditation should be like 5 minutes. There's amazing apps that you can use. There's the meditation app, it's called Meditation, Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer. And if you want, there's free on YouTube. You can just type in like, meditation for sleep or meditation for anxiety and use them, and you don't have to pay anything for them. And they're really, really helpful just to kind of like teach you just to come back, to be in the moment, to be aware of your thoughts, not getting caught up in them, and connecting mind and body. Very often those are not connected. We're always doing one thing and thinking of another. We're eating and we're talking to this one, or we're eating and we're looking at our phones, or we're walking and we're picking up stuff as we're walking along. We're never connected, mind and body. So we really want to try to do that as much as possible. So thank you so much for this opportunity to meditate with you. And thank you for everything that I learned tonight from all of the wonderful speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Really appreciate that. I think that, I think about the day that is and that was, and it's now a few minutes after 10. And I think about how lovely that was to be able to just kind of complete the intensity of the hour with a calming, quieter space. And I think about how we forget how necessary it is for us to quiet our minds at certain points, especially because what has happened over the last couple of weeks has been one of a tremendous rise in intensity for all of us. And to be reminded of what it might take for us to calm our minds, even if it's only for a moment, even if it's only for 3 minutes, how necessary it is for us to kind of bring ourselves back into our body. I think that's a lesson for those that are in struggle with infertility, not in struggle, but witnessing those with infertility, for those of us that are struggling in other areas and aspects of our personal and communal life, to take a moment to come back into our breath, to come back into our bodies, and to think about, okay, I've made it through today. I've chosen to spend this hour in hopefully a productive and meaningful hour that I hope will bring additional strength to others who are in struggle. So I'd like to conclude with, first of all, thanking, I think, kind of our primary cheerleader, Gila, for scrambling to put this together, for, I don't know, where you locked certain people in what rooms in order to be able to be on the line at 7 o'clock on a West Coast time. I'm grateful for that. To Ellie for your partnership, for always spearheading and championing the Yesh Tikva cause, and to each and every one of you who chose to spend the evening with us together and share what you've learned. Pick one thing that was interesting, that one moment where you went, oh, I never thought of that. And share it with someone. Talk about that with a friend, talk about it with a family member, and then it spreads. And that ripple effect is one that I hope and I know will change the way that we support others and create community around those that need us the most. So have a good evening, a peaceful, restful, healthy Shabbos, and we should gather together again, hopefully in person. And I look forward to that day, hopefully very, very, very soon. Have a good evening, a good Shabbos. Thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you.